Y'all, look at this mess. This is my first attempt at a sour cream coffee cake pound cake. As you can see, it is a complete and utter disaster. Yeah, I'm at a loss of words. I am going to remake this cake. I am including this clip at the beginning of this video to let you guys know that things do not always go well in the kitchen. Even experienced bakers have mishaps, and this is unfortunately one of mine. So when I remake the cake, I will let you guys know what I think went wrong the first time I made it, this time. But again, I'm including this at the beginning of that video just so you guys can see. So let's go ahead and get into round 2. All right, y'all, so these are the ingredients for the cake. Up first, we have 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. Here we have 3 cups of granulated sugar, 6 eggs at room temperature, 2 sticks of unsalted butter at room temperature, 1 cup of sour cream, and we will be using about 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. You just heard my oven go off. We have preheated the oven to 325 degrees. For our streusel topping, we have 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1/2 stick of unsalted butter at room temperature, and 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. Again, here is the bowl that contains all of the ingredients for the streusel, and I am simply going in with my hand and I am mashing everything together. The butter will act as a binder and get everything to stick, so I'm just going to go through, continue to press everything together until our streusel actually kind of turns into like little pea sizes and it starts to separate. Once the streusel is done, I'm going to place it into the freezer so that the butter will have a chance to solidify again and become a little hard again. Again, I used room temperature butter because I feel like it's easier to mash everything together while it is room temperature. So I will just place it in the freezer while I work on the cake batter, and I'll take it out when I'm ready to use it. All right, so now we are going to start on the cake. We're going to start by adding the 2 sticks of butter to the mixer. We're going to turn the mixer on. Now we're going in and adding the granulated sugar. Since the butter was so soft, we didn't have to mix it too long. But again, we're adding the sugar at this point. We're going to continue to mix. Here I am turning the mixer off so I can take a moment to scrape down the sides and the bottom of the bowl just to make sure that everything is getting well combined. This step, I usually let the mixer run for about 10 minutes total once I've added the sugar to the butter. I'll let it run just long enough to break down those sugar crystals, and as you can see it here, it lightens in color and it becomes really nice and fluffy. For the sake of time, I do speed it up in the video, but again, I do let it run for about 10 minutes. And again, I have turned the mixer off to scrape down the sides and the bottom of the bowl to make sure that everything is well incorporated. We are going to go in and add our eggs one at a time. I have noticed that in the past when I show the step of adding the eggs, again to save time in the video, I typically speed it up, but I don't want to give the wrong impression that I have the mixer up at a high speed adding the eggs. So as you can see, the mixer, I want to say was at a 3 or 4 at this point. I'm adding the eggs. Once I add one, I'll let it run long enough to break the yolk and it starts to blend in a bit, and then I'll go in and I will add the next egg. So we'll continue until we've added all of the eggs to the batter. Now now that we have all the eggs added, we're going to turn the mixer off once again to scrape down the sides and the bottom of the bowl before we move on to the next step. So here I have added the vanilla extract to the batter, and we're going to mix that in a bit. Here I have stopped the mixer to add the flour. Because we're adding sour cream to this cake, we're only going to add half of the flour at this point, and then we'll add the sour cream and then go back and add the rest of the flour. Whenever adding any moisture to cakes, you always start with dry ingredients and end with dry ingredients. So we're starting with flour, then we'll add our sour cream, and then we will end by adding the rest of the flour to the mixture. So here I've turned the mixer off again, and I'm going in with the rest of the flour. Now I have turned the mixer off, and I'm going in and I am scraping down the sides and the bottom of the bowl one final time. Here you can see our batter is all done. Okay, so here we have our pan, and I'm going to go through and spray with some Pam baking spray. Up next, I will add some parchment paper to the pan, and that's the first thing that I'm doing differently this time around. The first time I baked this cake, I did not add parchment paper, but right now I'm going to go through and I'm going to tell you everything that I did differently. So the first time I made this cake, I used cake flour. This time around, I used all-purpose flour. I also added 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda to this recipe that I did not do the first time around. Also, the first time I made this cake, I used 3 sticks of butter. This time around, I used 2 sticks of butter. And the biggest difference, I think, is I always bake my pound cakes at 300 degrees. I like to bake them low and slow, and I think that leaves them really, really moist. This time around, I did bake them at 325 degrees. I did bake the cake at 325 degrees this time. I think last time, because I baked so low, it gave the streusel an opportunity to sink into the cake. And so there was no definition in the middle of the cake. And also the streusel topping that was on top of the cake just kind of sunk and baked into the cake. And looking at it, you couldn't tell that it had a streusel topping at all. You will see that coming up. I will show you guys clips from the first time I made the cake. So now that I have the parchment paper in the pan, I also went back and sprayed a little more nonstick spray. So here I'm going in and I am adding half of the cake batter to the pan. Now that we've added half of the batter to the pan, I'm going to go in with the streusel and I'm going to add a layer on top. I'm going to use half here and then half on the top of the cake. So when I'm adding the streusel, I'm being very careful to try to stay away from the edges of the pan as well as the center of the pan. Last time I did that, I just kind of had it spread all across, and I think that kind of added to or aided the cake in sticking to the pan. So the first thing I did to prevent that was add the parchment paper this time, but as I'm adding the streusel, I'm just trying very hard to stay away from the edges. So now that I've added half of the streusel, I'm going to go in with the rest of the cake batter and add that on top. So I've added the rest of the cake batter to the pan. So I'm just going to give it a little jiggle. I don't want to tap it because I don't want the streusel that's in the middle of the cake to sink. I'm trying to prevent that this time. So I just gave it a little jiggle. So now that I've added the rest of the cake batter to the pan, I am going in and I am adding the rest of the streusel to the cake. I am spreading a nice even layer on top. Once I am done, I'm going to place the cake into the oven. Again, the oven has preheated to 325 degrees. I will start by baking the cake for about an hour 15, an hour 20 minutes. If I decide I need more time after checking it, I will add on at that point. But I will see you guys once we take the cake out of the oven. So here is the second cake after 1 hour and 25 minutes in the oven. It looks so much better than the first one. You can actually see the streusel topping on top of the cake. So I'm excited to cut it and see what the inside looks like. But we're gonna leave this out for about 15 minutes and then we will come back and remove it from the pan. All right, y'all, so now I'm going to remove the cake from the pan. I'm trying to decide if I should flip it over twice or just lift it and let it cool some more and then lift it up. I think I'm gonna flip it over. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna use this plate to put on top to flip the cake over, and then I'm gonna use this board to sit the cake upright, if that makes sense. So here we have this. We're gonna flip the cake over. Hopefully we won't have any sticking. It slid over. Lost some of the streusel topping. All right. So we're gonna remove this parchment paper. And now we're gonna lift this up. Beautiful. So now I'm gonna take this board and we're gonna flip the cake back over so it'll be streusel topping side up. And once the slide. Voila! Oh my gosh, this is so much better than the first one. Okay, just a minute. Okay, so here is a close-up of the cake. You can see that piece right there is where some of the batter went behind the parchment paper. It didn't actually stick. So yeah, you can see there was no sticking on the side of the cake. Our streusel topping is fully intact on top of the cake. I'm so excited. Okay, so we're gonna set this aside, let it sit out for about 45 minutes to an hour. We are going to make our maple glaze that we will drizzle on top at that point. All right, so now we are going to make our maple glaze. Here we have 1 cup of powdered sugar. I'm gonna put a drop of vanilla extract inside, and then we will add as much maple syrup as we need. So I'm gonna start by adding the vanilla. Now I'm gonna go in with a little maple syrup. Maybe 2 teaspoons to start. We're gonna mix this up. We're gonna need more, about another teaspoon. We will gradually add to it until we get our desired consistency. We're gonna do about 2 teaspoons here. A little more. I wasn't gonna add any heavy cream, but I think I'm going to now to loosen this up a bit since the syrup is sticky. So I just added about a teaspoon of heavy cream. Yeah, that's what I was missing. As you can see, that helped a lot. I'm trying to smooth these powdered sugar lumps out. Then we're gonna add a little more heavy cream to loosen it just a little more. Okay. So just a splash. Perfect. All right, y'all. We are done. So we're gonna set this aside again, wait for our cake to finish cooling, and then we will drizzle some on top. All right, y'all, so our cake has had the chance to cool off. So I am now going to go and drizzle our glaze on top. This cake is cool and it still smells absolutely amazing. I'm just so excited. I had a better outcome this time. I didn't even get to add the glaze the last time because the cake messed up on me. So here we have it, our finished product. All right, y'all, we have made it to the end of this video. Here we have our sour cream coffee cake, pound cake. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope you found my tips to be helpful when sharing what I did differently between the first cake and the last cake. If you have any questions about anything I've done, leave them down below in the comment section and I will be sure to reply. While you're here, I hope you take a moment to look down below, press that red subscribe button, join our family, come back for some more recipes. Again, I thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.